And now for an important and inspiring conversation with next-gen energy leaders on accelerating transition to a sustainable energy future. Please welcome our moderator, Ms. Ariel Alexovich, Sustainable Development Officer, UNDESA.
Thank you, Annette. Hi, everyone. As Annette mentioned, welcome to our next session, a conversation with next-gen energy leaders accelerating transition to a sustainable energy future. I'm happy to introduce our guest for this important conversation on youth engagement with the SDG7 roadmap. So we're going to start with one guest, and hopefully our second guest will join momentarily. But we have with us David Arinze, Global Focal Point for the SDG7 Youth Constituency. And welcome, David. We're so glad you can be here.
It is absolutely a delight to join you at this time. I'm joining you from Pittsburgh, where we're having the Global Clean Energy Action Forum. Thank you so much for having me.
Very cool. So at today's forum, we've heard some discussions related to phasing out fossil fuel subsidies, some things about clean cooking, just overall improving access to electricity. So now as we shift our focus to young people and the role they play in our clean energy future, I want to point out to everyone that today is also a Friday, and Fridays, there are climate strikes that happen around the world. It's the global grassroots youth movement. There's a big climate strike happening here in New York City, and they've been happening all over the world. So David, first maybe I can turn to you and just first take the temperature of what you think young people are demanding from leadership related to SDG7 in this broader climate action context. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ariel, for the question, and such a pleasure to be here again. When we look at what young people are asking, it's the sense of urgency that is required for us to be able to ensure that by 2030, the sustainable development goals are achieved, especially when it comes to achieving clean and affordable energy for all, SDG7, and ensuring that the overarching impact of climate change is also being addressed, because this is also one of our goals, Goal 13. And if you look at where we are currently, while it was great that all the countries alluded to signing the Paris Agreement in 2015, and which set the tone for where we are at today, there is no rapid response. That the kind of response that governments are supposed to give towards addressing the climate challenge is not there. And we have just 8 years to achieve these goals. And if we keep on taking it business as usual, we do not take significant action, we do not drive it through the relevant levels of financing, drive it through the relevant levels of policies that need to be in place, these goals would just be a joke. And it is not a joke, because if those goals are not achieved, we are talking about the significant impact that could happen to lives across the globe. So that sense of urgency is what youth are requesting of governments and of leaders across the globe. We do not have time. We do not have the luxury of just having meetings without backing it with significant action. And that is what youth are saying. So that's my response to you, Ariel.
Yeah, thank you, David. I think we can agree here that business as usual doesn't work. We need new ideas. Youth have a lot of good ideas. I see our second guest is here. I'd like to introduce Manal Benani, Youth Strategy Advisor for the Africa-Europe Foundation and Youth Climate Advocate. Manal, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. We're glad you can be here. So David had started us off with just kind of an introduction to what youth are demanding from leadership related to SDG7 in the context of broader climate action. Would you care to share what you're seeing in your country? What are youth demanding?
Thank you very much, Ariel. I would like to give just a small overview of Algeria for the people who don't know it. So Algeria is one of the biggest, actually, the biggest country in Africa, and it's one of the richest country in the region with the GDP by GDP per capita. It's the largest nation on the continent by land area, and it has the capacity of over 3,000 hours of sunlight annually. However, it's the third in Africa for carbon dioxide emissions, and it's the largest hydrocarbon producer with oil and gas revenues more than half of the national budget, as well as representing 90% of the export earnings. So you could imagine, I come from a country that is 100% dependent on non-renewable energy sources and not non-clean energy sources, but people are, the awareness when it comes to climate change and when it comes to the need to shift to a cleaner energy is getting higher and higher. We're still behind because the discussion in Algeria is not the same as it is here in New York or as it is in Europe or anywhere else in the world, because people are so ignorant when it comes to the climate issues that we are facing. And I think that with all of the political unrest, the social unrest, the climate change doesn't really rank among the top priorities. It is a sad reality. However, there are a lot of climate activists and a lot of people who are pushing for this transition and demanding a political will to make this transition to renewable energy. And although this represents really a minority from even the youth population in Algeria, however, there is the demand there. So I would say that kind of like reflects how is the situation in Algeria.
Thank you, Manal. And I think what you're talking about is directly to this point that we talk a lot about in DESA, which is that climate and energy and the whole SDG agenda, these goals are interlinked, and progress on SDG7 helps people improve their circumstances. It helps with goals on poverty and hunger and gender equality. So thank you for that experience of Algeria. And of course, young people have a lot of suggestions and good solutions for bringing clean and affordable energy to more people. I wonder if you can both offer some examples of how young people are getting involved in the energy transition where you are. So David, this time I'll go to you.
All right, great. Thank you so much for the question. There are myriads of significant examples that I can share. In fact, at the SDG7 Youth Constituency, we have a Youth Sustainable Energy Hub that has served as an aggregator for young people to come in with their ideas, with their initiatives, with their projects, ask their companies to literally understand how they can receive support for leadership, strategy, marketing, and how they can scale their businesses. And I must say that we are beginning to see some significant amount of successes. There's so many, there are tons and tons of projects there are many to pick from, but I would say that the young people are beginning to deploy solutions like mini-grid solutions, standalone systems. But when you look at the number of ideas and the amount of innovation that come with young people, one thing that you would need to see more is the level of financial support that needs to come to them. And so government relevant agencies need to look at the fact that for us to be able to ensure that we can support youth in a way that they can replicate these solutions and scale them, they need relevant financing. But we are beginning to see that youths are taking the stage across sub-Saharan Africa and even across the globe with their ideas in areas of clean cooking, energy access, e-mobility, green hydrogen. Here at the Global Clean Energy Action Forum, we had fellows from the Breakthrough Energy, which is Bill Gates initiatives, where young people, young CEOs are showing their innovations, are showing the various solutions that they are bringing to the fore, able to address energy access and able to ensure that we can solve the climate crisis which we are in. That's just Breakthrough Energy funding 100 companies. This is not enough. We have like the Youth Sustainable Energy Hub and many other aggregators that need the kind of significant support to put young people at the fore. Are young people working? Yes. Are young people creating opportunity, bringing out new ideas and bringing out new innovations? Yes. Are they getting the needed support? Not yet, but we can get there. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And over to you, Manal, for examples of how Algerian youth are getting involved in the energy transition, or if you have examples from other places.
Thank you so much, Ariel, and thank you actually for raising this question, because it's very important to see how actually young people are hustling to play a role in this transition, especially when there is no political will to do so. I mean, the Algerian government did have a plan for 2020 till 2025 for renewable energy transition, which seems very ambitious and very similar to a plan that they have announced back in 2011, which failed. Obviously, we're looking at the results. The Algerian youth is really like trying really hard to take part in this transition through the same actually examples that were mentioned by making their own startups and small to medium enterprises, which are really based using clean energy resources, and even like creating and generating energy from clean resources such as like solar panels and even like energy generators from water. However, it's very expensive for them to do so because they create their own tools and their own resources to generate this energy, and there is very little support by the government or even or any other institutions in the country to help their projects sustain. So sadly, what we see is that most of them, whether they decide to change the country or decide to move to cheaper resources of energy, which is a really sad result. I think I second what have been said before, that there needs to be like a really strong will from governments and also other institutions, international organizations, to back up young people so that they can participate in this transition, but also to also involve them in the political discussions when it comes to energy resources. Young people always bring very fresh, very innovative, and very new ideas in terms of the transition and what is really practical on the ground. Something that policymakers lack, whether we like it or not, and keep neglecting them and keep ignoring their ideas will never allow us to actually reach any of the renewable energy goals or the goals of the SDG7. But to see, like, there are some good practices, but the impact is very tiny compared to the huge to the land, especially in Algeria. There are also other examples in Africa of young people also building their own initiatives, but like they need more support. I think they need more channels to reach financing, and they need more channels also to have the sustainable flow of knowledge and also of technology, because they cannot do it by themselves unless there is support from the outside.
Yeah, thank you, Manal, for sharing your experience. You know, I think that I've heard from you both the themes that we need more financing, we need more engagement with youth, and really this conversation, we want to kind of think about how young people can be more involved in the global roadmap for accelerated SDG7 action. I think some of this could be through partnerships like you were just talking about, Manal. From partnerships with the UN, local national governments, businesses, stakeholders. And I wonder if both of you have practical advice for how to get the financing to these innovators for building partnerships. Do you have any best practices that you can suggest for doing this? So maybe Manal, I'll start with you this time.
Thank you, Ariel. Actually, like in my capacity as a youth advisor at the Africa Air Foundation, and even like throughout this week as a delegate of the SC for All organization here in New York, I have noticed that young people need, first of all, capacity building. They need to get as much as possible exchange opportunities so that they can learn more ways of how to actually transition by themselves to energy, to clean energy, and how to actually support in this transition. Second of all, and that also that implies mobility facilitation, because when I speak, I'm from Algeria, and I speak for, I think, millions of young people in Africa, that mobility is a big issue for us in terms of exchanges and access to a lot of programs. So that's the first. Second of all, when we talk about financing, just giving money to young people is not the solution. When you finance projects, you need to teach young people how to actually manage that those finances. You need to teach them, first of all, how to access the finances, how to apply to the different funds that are available, but then how to manage that money and how to make sure that the impact is sustainable, and do a follow-up and an assessment of those results. Third of all, I think it's very important to teach young people about scaling their projects, because I think all over Africa, and I speak not only for myself, it's you can map as many good practices as possible, but you will never find all of them. And I think unless we teach young people to scale up their projects by themselves, we will never really reach and we will never work together to actually reach any of the SDGs, and specifically the SDG7 goal. So I think these three areas are very, very important in terms of the involvement of young people, but also working together with other organizations. So I hope that next time an NGO or like a governmental institution decides to support you, they bear that in mind.
Thank you very much, Manal. That's a great advice. I hope everyone is listening out there. So David, how about you? What would you like to see from this group of stakeholders? How can we support young people on the ground?
Thank you so much for the question and great thoughts. Now you have literally set the tone for answering this question in the right direction. One of the things to mention is young people who are entrepreneurs, who are innovators, would come in at various stages. Some of them will be at the startup stage, some of them will be at the scale-up stage, some of them will be at the growth stage, and at each stage that each company is, there is a unique predefined set of support that is required. And if governments cannot and partners cannot meet them at those points, it creates a significant challenge towards provide, because and once we begin to identify these businesses at that various level, it provides a huge impact, because we know that for companies to be able to even have a prototype, they need that prototype to be funded. And for those who have a working prototype, sometimes they may need multiple iterations before they get to a point. And even those who have gotten multiple iterations need to understand that there's something called marketing, there's something called leadership, there's something called strategy, and all of that needs to come into the mix before you can scale. And so, because when we talk about, oh, we need to solve the climate challenge, we need to, all of this, for those who are innovators or those who are social entrepreneurs, they are creating these initiatives with the end goal to make profit. It must be bankable. And that's the only way it can make sense and can be sustainable. So we're not even just saying, oh, give young people money or give them handouts or give them grant funding, don't follow up. No. Just like Mana had mentioned, Dr. Mana had mentioned, you give them money, but you also handhold them at various levels and create a situation where there's an opportunity for mentorship in the scheme of things, so that those who are coming in as new entrants can see those who are doing it at a great scale and see what they can learn from it. And so that is very critical. If we do not do that, then we would really be making a fundamental mistake. Another thing that government needs to do is that not everybody will be social entrepreneurs, not everybody will be innovators, not everybody would fall into that skill, but some people may just be part of an organization. And so the relevant capacity building efforts that need to be undertaken by government and relevant partners cannot be taken for granted. So that is very important, and that should also be prioritized across scale. Because we also need those who are working in policy, we need those who are working in finance, we need those who are working in science, those who are working in research labs. It takes a whole village to get this thing done. And so for us to be able to ensure that we achieve significant results, the relevant capacity building has to happen across board before we'll be able to see significant successes. This has been proven. Of course, we can commend development partners and governments, even including the government of Nigeria, where I'm based, about the tremendous work that they are doing, but a lot more needs to be done. If we're going to, bear in mind, we have 8 more years. We do not have time on our hands, and we need to take action today. Thank you.
Absolutely, David. Your passion is coming through loud and clear. We really appreciate you answering that question. So we just have about 2 minutes left here. I'm wondering if each of you can just briefly just tell us what motivates you to work so hard for clean energy. Just tell us in about 30 seconds or so. David, you first. You're on a roll.
The tangibility of the impact for me is one thing that keeps me going every day. Energy is the means to an end, it's not an end. Energy, like you mentioned at the beginning, powers education, agriculture. Energy powers our life, and so if we ensure that we can solve the issue or the challenge of energy access, we're literally solving a significant part of the challenge across livelihood, because energy enables industries, energy will create jobs, energy will do so much, will better improve the service, the healthcare service. It's far-reaching. I can't keep talking about the impact of energy. So, but the tangibility of the impact keeps me going every day.
All right. Thank you, David. And Manal, just 20 seconds. What motivates you to work so hard towards SDG 7?
Thank you so much. I mean, I think I should just remind that we have one Earth, whether we like it or not. And looking at everything that is happening around us, the climate change impact on our lives, I think it's time that we take rational decisions, and it's really time to be responsible. And like the first thing that is easy to do with it is to actually transition to a cleaner energy, and to make sure that we're making the right choices on our daily life basis. And just like was mentioned before, it is a very tangible impact because it will affect every single angle of our lives. So just keep that in mind. We have just one Earth. We have to protect it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, David and Manal. I really could keep talking to you all day, but we really appreciate your honest answers. And thank you, audience, for listening. We look forward to much more youth involvement in SDG 7. And back to you, forum organizers.
Thank you to